The evening sun cast long shadows through the tall windows of the Grand Plaza Hotel ballroom. Mei Lin moved quietly between the tables, straightening the crisp white tablecloths and aligning the silverware just so. Her movements were quick but careful, practiced from years of working behind the scenes at fancy events like tonight's charity gala. Mei had been working at the hotel for almost 5 years now. At 34, she was neither young enough to draw attention nor old enough to be invisible. But her gray uniform and quiet manner meant most guests looked right through her. That was fine with Mei. She preferred to blend into the background, especially at events like this where the room would soon fill with people wearing outfits that cost more than she made in a month. "Make sure the flowers are centered exactly," called out Rita, the event coordinator, as she breezed past with her clipboard. "The Westbrook Foundation people are very particular." Mei nodded and adjusted a vase of lilies. She didn't mind Rita's fussy instructions. Taking pride in small details was something Mei understood well. As she worked her way around the room, Mei's eyes kept drifting to the far corner where an old upright piano sat. Unlike everything else in the ballroom, the piano wasn't polished to perfection. Its dark wood was scratched in places, and one corner showed signs of water damage from years ago. It looked out of place among the crystal chandeliers and fresh flowers. Mei finished arranging the last centerpiece and walked over to the piano, drawn to it like an old friend. She ran her fingers lightly over the closed lid, feeling the tiny imperfections in the wood. "Don't bother with that thing," Rita said, appearing suddenly beside her. "It's just for show. Half the keys don't even work anymore, and it hasn't been tuned in ages. Mr. Westbrook likes how it looks in photos, that's all." Mei pulled her hand back quickly. "Sorry, I was just dusting it." Rita checked something off on her clipboard. "The guests will be arriving in 30 minutes. Can you help Thomas set up the drink station?" For the next half hour, Mei bustled around with the other hotel staff, filling ice buckets and arranging glasses. The kitchen staff wheeled in trays of tiny, beautiful appetizers that made Mei's stomach rumble. Her lunch break had been cut short today because of the event, and she wouldn't get another break until much later. Soon the ballroom doors opened, and guests began to arrive. Women in flowing dresses and men in tailored suits filled the room with laughter and conversation. The charity gala was raising money for music programs in public schools. Though Mei doubted many of the guests had ever set foot in a public school. "Keep the glasses full and the trays moving," the catering manager reminded the staff before they dispersed into the crowd. Mei carried a tray of champagne flutes, offering them to guests with a polite smile. Most took a glass without really looking at her. A few said thank you. One older woman with kind eyes asked Mei her name, which was so unexpected that Mei almost spilled the tray. As the evening progressed, Mei continued her duties, clearing empty glasses and making sure everything ran smoothly. The room grew warmer and louder as more champagne was consumed. A small orchestra played soft background music that few people seemed to notice. During a brief lull, Mei found herself near the old piano again. The lid was open now, revealing yellowed keys, some of which were indeed missing their ivory coverings. Without thinking, Mei reached out and pressed one key very gently. No sound came out. She tried another, and a soft, slightly out-of-tune note hung in the air. "Hey, you interested in that old thing?" Mei jumped and turned to see a young man in an expensive suit watching her. His tie was slightly loosened and his cheeks were flushed from drinking. "I'm sorry," Mei said quickly. "I was just checking if it needed cleaning." The man laughed and called over to a group of similarly well-dressed young people. "Hey guys, come check this out." Mei felt her face growing hot as 4 more people wandered over, drinks in hand and curiosity on their faces. "What's up, Devin?" asked a woman with a sparkly dress and perfect hair. "Our friend here seems interested in this ancient piano," the first man said, gesturing to Mei, who wished she could disappear into the floor. "I should get back to work," Mei mumbled, but the group had formed a loose circle around her and the piano. "No. Wait," said another man, his words slightly slurred. "Do you play?" Before Mei could answer, Rita appeared at the edge of the group. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her eyes darting between the guests and Mei. "Absolutely," said Devin. "We were just wondering if your staff member here plays the piano." Rita looked confused. I bet she does," interrupted the woman in the sparkly dress. She was looking at it like she wanted to try it out. Mei shook her head. "Really, I should get back to "Oh, come on," said Devin, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. "Just play us a little something. The night needs some excitement." May looked at Rita, silently pleading for help, but Rita just gave a tight smile. "Our guests are requesting a quick performance, May. If you know how to play something simple, perhaps you could oblige." "Just briefly, of course." May realized Rita was worried about upsetting the wealthy donors. She swallowed hard and looked at the broken piano. The group was watching her with amused expressions, clearly expecting her to embarrass herself on the out-of-tune instrument. It was a joke to them, a way to liven up their evening at her expense. "I only know a little," May said softly, which wasn't exactly true. "That's perfect." Devin clapped his hands together. "A little amateur performance. Everyone loves that kind of thing." The woman in the sparkly dress pulled out her phone. "I'm recording this. It'll be hilarious." May felt trapped. If she refused now, she might lose her job. Rita was already giving her a warning look. With a deep breath, May set down her tray on a nearby table and reluctantly sat on the piano bench. The leather was cracked and the seat wobbled slightly. She placed her hands on the keyboard, immediately noticing which keys were missing their coverings. She pressed a few experimentally, hearing the uneven tones and wincing at the sour notes. The small group of onlookers laughed. "Sounds like a dying cat," one of them whispered loudly. May closed her eyes for a moment. She could walk away now and face Rita's disappointment, or she could try to make the best of this humiliating situation. Her fingers hovered over the keys as memories flooded back. Memories she usually kept locked away because they hurt too much. In her mind, she saw a much smaller piano in the corner of her family's tiny apartment. She saw her grandmother's weathered hands guiding her own chubby 5-year-old fingers over the keys. She heard her grandmother's voice. "Music lives in your heart, little one. Your fingers are just how it escapes into the world." May opened her eyes. The group was still watching, some already losing interest, ready to move on to the next entertaining moment of their evening. Devin raised an eyebrow at her hesitation. "Performance anxiety?" he asked with a smirk. Something shifted inside May then. She straightened her back and took a deep breath. Then she began to play. Her fingers found the working keys and avoided the broken ones, adapting to the piano's limitations. The first notes were tentative as she reacquainted herself with the feel of a keyboard beneath her hands. It had been so long, years since she had really played. She started with a simple melody, something that wouldn't require the missing keys. The notes rang out slightly off-key but recognizable. A few more guests glanced over curiously. As her confidence grew, May's fingers moved more surely. She worked around the piano's flaws, turning them into features of her improvisation rather than obstacles. The music grew fuller, more complex, drawing from half-remembered classical pieces and weaving them together with melodies from her childhood. May forgot about the people watching her. She forgot about her gray uniform and her aching feet. She forgot about the years of silence. In that moment, there was only the music flowing from her fingers, imperfect but alive. Near the end of her piece, May allowed herself to look up. The small group that had gathered to mock her had grown. At least 20 people now stood in a loose semicircle. Their conversations paused, drinks held forgotten in their hands. Their expressions had changed from amusement to something else: surprise, curiosity, even respect. Rita stood at the edge of the crowd, her clipboard lowered, her mouth slightly open. Next to her was an older man with silver hair and an expensive suit, watching May with intense interest as May played the final notes, letting them fade gently into the room's atmosphere. She realized that the area around the piano had grown quiet. Then came the sound of applause, hesitant at first, then growing stronger. The woman who had been recording lowered her phone slowly. Devin's smirk had vanished, replaced by a look of genuine surprise. The older man next to Rita stepped forward, his eyes fixed on May with an expression she couldn't quite read. May stood quickly, embarrassment flooding back as she remembered her place. She was staff, not entertainment. She had duties to return to. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, smoothing down her uniform. "I should get back to work." As she tried to step away from the piano, she heard Rita's voice, uncharacteristically gentle. "May, Mr. Westbrook would like to speak with you." The silver-haired man stepped forward, and May realized with a jolt that he was Thomas Westbrook himself, the host of the gala and one of the wealthiest men in the city. Her heart raced as she wondered if she had somehow broken the rules by playing the piano. despite being asked to do so, but Thomas Westbrook was smiling. "That," he said, "was extraordinary." May stood frozen, her hands clasped tightly in front of her uniform as Thomas Westbrook regarded her with curious eyes. The wealthy businessman's attention made her want to disappear into the polished floor beneath her feet. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked. May glanced at Rita, who gave a small nod, encouraging her to answer. "My grandmother taught me when I was young," May said softly. "She played for the Beijing Symphony before moving here." Westbrook's eyebrows rose slightly. "And you work here as hotel staff?" Heat crept up May's neck. "Yes, sir. For about 5 years now." A flash of something, perhaps disappointment, crossed Westbrook's face, but his polite smile never wavered. "Well, you have a remarkable talent, especially considering the condition of that poor instrument." People around them murmured in agreement. The small crowd that had gathered to watch her play was still hovering nearby, their expressions a mix of surprise and newfound respect. Devon and his friends stood awkwardly at the back of the group, their earlier mockery forgotten. "Thank you," May said, wishing she could return to her duties and out of the spotlight. "I should really get back to work now." Rita stepped forward. "Actually, May, why don't you take your break now? You've been on your feet all evening." This was unusual. Breaks were strictly scheduled and never during the busiest part of an event. But May recognized the hint in Rita's voice and nodded gratefully. "Of course," said Westbrook. "Please take some time. And thank you for that lovely performance." He turned to rejoin his guests, but not before giving May one last thoughtful look. As the crowd dispersed and the regular hum of conversation resumed, May slipped away through a side door that led to the hotel's service corridors. The sudden quiet was a relief after the tension of being the center of attention. She made her way to the staff break room and sank into a chair, her hands still trembling slightly. Playing again after so many years had awakened something inside her, something she had tried very hard to bury. The door swung open, and Rita entered, her ever-present clipboard tucked under her arm. "That was unexpected," she said, taking the chair opposite May. May looked down at her hands. "I'm sorry if I caused any problems." "Problems?" Rita shook her head. "Are you kidding?" Mr. Westbrook was impressed. "Several guests asked me about you. One woman wanted to know if you give lessons." "Oh," May said, not sure how else to respond. Rita studied her for a moment. "You never mentioned you could play." "It never came up," May replied with a small shrug. "It's not really relevant to cleaning rooms or serving drinks." "Well, it's relevant tonight," Rita said. "This gala is raising money for music education programs, remember? Mr. Westbrook wants you to play again." May's head snapped up. "What?" "Later this evening. During the fundraising appeal. He thinks your story would inspire people to donate." "My story?" Panic fluttered in May's chest. "I don't have a story. I just know how to play a little, that's all." Rita raised an eyebrow. "A little?" "May, you had half the room in tears and you were playing on a piano that sounds like it's been dropped down a flight of stairs." "It wasn't that good," May insisted. "They were just surprised because they expected me to be terrible." "Maybe at first," Rita agreed. "But then you did something wonderful with that broken piano and everyone saw it." May shook her head firmly. "I can't play again. Please tell Mr. Westbrook I'm sorry, but I can't." "Why not?" The question hung in the air between them. May looked away, her throat tightening. How could she explain that playing the piano brought back memories she couldn't bear to face? That music had once been her whole world, and losing it had nearly broken her? "I just can't," she said finally. "It's been too long," Rita sighed. "All right, I'll tell him. But if you change your mind..." She stood and headed for the door, then paused. "By the way, there's a man who's been asking about you. Older gentleman named Howard Chen. Says he's with the City Conservatory of Music." May felt the blood drain from her face. "Please don't tell him anything about me." Rita gave her a curious look. "I already told him your name. Was that wrong?" "No, it's fine," May said quickly, though it wasn't fine at all. She forced a smile. "I should get back out there." When May returned to the ballroom, she kept her head down and stayed close to the walls, focusing on collecting empty glasses and keeping away from the old piano in the corner. She could feel eyes on her occasionally, but pretended not to notice. An hour passed this way. The formal dinner was served, and May helped bring out dessert plates. On the small stage at the front of the room, Thomas Westbrook gave a speech about the importance of music education in public schools. May half listened as she worked, trying to blend into the background once again. And now, Westbrook was saying, I'd like to introduce our special guest for the evening. Howard Chen, director of the City Conservatory of Music, will tell us more about the programs your generous donations will support. May nearly dropped the tray she was carrying. She turned toward the stage and saw an elderly man with steel gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses taking the microphone. Howard Chen, her grandmother's oldest friend, the man who had once promised her a place at the conservatory, before everything fell apart. She hadn't seen him in almost 10 years. Would he recognize her? May ducked behind a large floral arrangement and peered through the leaves, her heart pounding. Howard Chen spoke passionately about music as a universal language, about its power to transform lives and open doors for young people from all backgrounds. His voice was just as May remembered, warm and slightly raspy around the edges. Music finds a way, he said, scanning the room. It finds the people who need it most, who can bring it to life in ways that touch our souls. His eyes moved across the crowd, and for a terrible moment, May thought he was looking right at her. She held her breath, but his gaze moved on. When he finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. Westbrook returned to the microphone to begin the fundraising portion of the evening. Mai used the commotion as cover to slip away to the kitchen, where she volunteered to help with dishwashing, anything to stay out of the ballroom. But fate had other plans. She had barely started rinsing champagne flutes when Rita appeared in the doorway, looking frazzled. May, I need you back out there. We're short-staffed at the dessert station. Can't someone else? Everyone else is busy, Rita cut her off. It's just for 30 minutes, then you can come back here if you want. Reluctantly, May dried her hands and followed Rita back to the ballroom. The fundraising appeal was in full swing now. On stage, a large display showed the running total of donations, which was already well into 6 figures. May took her position behind the dessert table, serving tiny portions of chocolate cake and creme brulee. She kept her eyes on the plates, focusing on making each serving perfect. Don't look up, she told herself. Just get through the next 30 minutes. Excuse me? The voice made her freeze. Slowly, May raised her head to find Howard Chen standing in front of her, his wise old eyes fixed on her face. It is you, he said softly. May Lin, after all these years. She tried to smile, but her lips trembled. Hello, Professor Chen. I thought I was seeing a ghost when I heard you play earlier, he said. Your grandmother's touch is still there in your fingers. May's eyes burned with sudden tears. Please, not here, she whispered, glancing around at the crowded room. Howard nodded, understanding in his expression. Can we talk? After this is over? Before May could answer, Thomas Westbrook's voice boomed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're making excellent progress toward our goal tonight, but I believe we can do even better. Earlier this evening, something remarkable happened here. One of the hotel staff members, when playfully challenged to try our decorative old piano, revealed an extraordinary gift. May's stomach dropped. No. Mr. Chen has informed me that this young woman's grandmother was once a celebrated concert pianist. Westbrook continued. The apple, it seems, doesn't fall far from the tree. People were turning to look at her now. May wanted to run, but her feet seemed rooted to the floor. I've asked if she would honor us with another performance as we continue our fundraising, Westbrook said, though I understand she's reluctant. Perhaps with a little encouragement. The room broke into applause, heads turning to find her. Devin and his friends, who had been standing nearby, stepped aside, leaving May fully visible. Spotlights swept the room and landed on her, pinning her in their bright beams. Howard Chen watched her with gentle eyes. Music finds a way, May, he said, echoing his speech from earlier. Sometimes it waits years for the right moment to be heard again. May looked around at the sea of faces now turned toward her. Wealthy strangers in expensive clothes, waiting to be entertained. But among them were also Rita, looking anxious but hopeful. Devin, whose earlier mockery had transformed into genuine curiosity. And Howard Chen, who had once believed in her talent enough to offer her a future. The applause continued, growing louder. From the stage, Westbrook called out, "What do you say? One more song to inspire our donors?" May felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. Behind her was the safe, quiet life she had built after losing everything. Before her was a chasm filled with memories both beautiful and painful. And on the other side, what? She didn't know. But the music that had awakened inside her earlier wasn't going back to sleep. It hummed in her veins, pushing her toward that broken piano waiting in the corner. With a deep breath, May stepped out from behind the dessert table and into the spotlight. The walk to the piano felt endless. Every eye in the ballroom followed May as she made her way across the polished floor, the spotlight trailing her like a persistent shadow. Her work shoes clicked softly with each step, reminding her that she was still in her gray uniform, still just hotel staff amid all these wealthy people in their fine clothes. When she finally reached the old piano, May paused, her hand resting on its scratched wooden surface. The instrument looked even more out of place now, with the spotlight shining on its worn edges and water-stained corner. Like her, it didn't belong in this glittering room. She sat down on the wobbly bench and took a deep breath. The microphone that someone had hastily set up next to the piano caught the sound and amplified it through the room's speakers, making her indrawn breath seem like a dramatic gesture. People chuckled softly. "Our reluctant pianist needs a moment," Thomas Westbrook said from the stage, his amplified voice light and amused. "While she prepares, let me remind you that every dollar donated tonight goes directly to bringing music education to schools that have lost their arts funding. Many of these children have never touched an instrument like this piano." May closed her eyes, trying to shut out the voices, the stares, the pressure. Her fingers hovered over the keys as memories washed over her again. Stronger this time, almost overwhelming. She remembered her grandmother's tiny apartment, the upright piano that took up an entire wall of the living room, the smell of jasmine tea and the sound of her grandmother's voice, patient but firm. "Again, little one," with feeling this time. She remembered the first time she played for an audience, a recital at age 7, her legs too short to reach the pedals, her heart racing with a mix of terror and excitement. She remembered the scholarship offer from the conservatory at 16, Professor Chen's kind face as he told her she had a rare gift, the future that had stretched out before her then, bright with possibility, and she remembered the phone call that had changed everything. Her grandmother collapsing during a community concert, the hospital waiting room, the doctor's grave face. "Miss, are you ready?" May opened her eyes to see a young event staff member looking at her uncertainly. The room had grown quiet, waiting. In the front row, Howard Chen gave her an encouraging nod. "What would you like me to play?" May asked quietly, but the microphone carried her words throughout the room. From the stage, Westbrook looked momentarily flustered. "Whatever you'd like. Something inspiring?" May nodded and turned back to the piano. Her hands found their position, and this time there was no hesitation. She began to play. The piece was one her grandmother had taught her, a traditional Chinese melody arranged for piano. She had never performed it publicly. It had been their private music, something they shared in the quiet evenings of her childhood. Playing it now felt like inviting her grandmother into the room, like a private conversation in the midst of this crowd. The broken keys forced her to adapt, to find new ways to express the familiar melody. But rather than being obstacles, the piano's flaws seemed to add character to the music, like age lines on a beloved face, telling of years lived and hardships endured. As the melody flowed from her fingers, May felt something inside her shift. The weight she had carried for so long, grief, regret, lost dreams, didn't disappear, but it changed somehow. It became part of the music rather than a barrier to it. The room had fallen completely silent except for the notes from the piano. Even the servers had stopped moving, standing still with trays in hand, listening. In the front row, Howard Chen had closed his eyes, a single tear tracking down his weathered cheek. When May finished, the silence held for a heartbeat longer, as if no one wanted to break the spell. Then the applause began, hesitant at first, then building to thunderous approval. People rose to their feet, their faces shining with emotion. From the stage, Westbrook gestured excitedly to the donation display where numbers were rapidly climbing. "Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. We've just received several major donations. We're now only $20,000 from our goal." May stood from the piano bench, unsure what to do next. A woman in a blue evening gown approached her, eyes wet with tears. "That was beautiful," she said, touching May's arm. "Truly beautiful. Was that from your homeland?" Before May could answer, others crowded around, asking questions, offering compliments, wanting suddenly to know everything about the woman they had overlooked all evening. "Have you recorded any music? Do you teach piano? How long have you played?" The attention was overwhelming. May looked around desperately for an escape but found herself surrounded. These were the same people who had barely noticed her existence an hour ago. "Please," she said quietly. "I need some air." The crowd parted reluctantly, and May made her way to the nearest exit, a small door that led to one of the hotel's garden terraces. The cool night air was a relief after the stuffy ballroom. She leaned against the stone balustrade and looked up at the stars, letting her racing heart slow. The door opened behind her, spilling light and noise briefly before closing again. Soft footsteps approached. "You still play beautifully," Howard Chen said as he came to stand beside her. May kept her eyes on the stars. "I don't play anymore. Tonight was just an exception, because they forced you to." She nodded. "And yet, you chose that piece." Howard's voice was gentle. "Your grandmother's favorite. You recognized it, of course. Li Wei played it at every one of her birthday celebrations." He paused. "She would be proud, May, of the way you've honored her teaching tonight." May turned to face him, anger flaring suddenly. "Proud that I wasted what she taught me? That I walk past pianos in hotel lobbies without touching them? That I work serving drinks to rich people instead of using my music?" Howard didn't flinch at her outburst. "Proud that when pushed to play a broken instrument as a joke, you showed everyone what music really is. Not perfect notes or flawless technique, but heart, connection, the thing that makes us human." May's anger faded as quickly as it had come, leaving her tired. "It doesn't matter. After tonight, everything goes back to normal. I go back to being invisible. Is that what you want?" The question hung between them. In the distance, the city lights twinkled, mirroring the stars above. "What I want doesn't matter," May said finally. "I made my choice 10 years ago. When grandmother got sick, I had to take care of her. The conservatory couldn't wait." "I remember," Howard said. "We offered to defer your scholarship for a year. 1 year wasn't enough. Her care took everything, all my time, all our savings. By the time she was gone, there was nothing left. Not even music." "Music is still there, May," Howard said softly. "You proved that tonight." The terrace door opened again and Rita poked her head out. "Oh, good, you're here. Mr. Westbrook is looking for you both. They're about to announce the final donation total." Howard offered his arm to May. "Shall we?" Reluctantly, May allowed him to lead her back into the ballroom. The crowd had reorganized, focusing their attention on the stage where Westbrook stood beaming next to the donation display. The number shown was significantly higher than their original goal. "Ah, there they are," Westbrook called as he spotted May and Howard. "Please, both of you, come up here." May hesitated, but Howard gently guided her forward. They made their way to the stage, where Westbrook waited with an expectant smile. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm thrilled to announce that we've not only met our fundraising goal for the evening, but we've exceeded it by over $50,000. The room erupted in applause and cheers. May stood awkwardly at the edge of the stage, wishing she could disappear. "And it's all thanks to our unexpected entertainment," Westbrook continued, gesturing toward May. "Your performance inspired our donors to unprecedented generosity." More applause. May felt her face growing hot. "Which is why," Westbrook said, "I'm delighted to announce a special addition to our music education initiative. The Westbrook Foundation will be creating a new position, Artist in Residence at the City Conservatory of Music." May looked at Howard in confusion. He smiled back, a knowing twinkle in his eyes. "This position," Westbrook continued, "will be offered to someone who embodies the spirit of tonight's event. Someone who can demonstrate that music transcends circumstances. That true talent can flourish even in unlikely places." The crowd began to murmur excitedly, looking between Westbrook and May. "Ms. Lin," Westbrook turned to her. "Professor Chen tells me you once had a promising future at the conservatory. Would you consider accepting this position, to teach and to play, bringing music to the very children your grandmother once dreamed of reaching?" May felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her feet. She looked out at the sea of faces, no longer overlooking her but watching expectantly. She saw Devin and his friends at the back. Their earlier mockery transformed to admiration. She saw Rita beaming with unexpected pride, and beside her stood Howard Chen, the link to her past and potentially to a future she had thought lost forever. May's voice caught in her throat. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Howard whispered. "Music has found its way back to you, May. Don't turn away again." The spotlight felt warm on her face as May stood at the crossroads of her life. faced with a choice she never expected to have again. Time seemed to stand still as May stood under the spotlight, hundreds of eyes watching her, waiting for her answer. The offer hung in the air between her and Thomas Westbrook, a chance to return to music, to teach, to play again. Everything she had given up 10 years ago. She began again, her voice small despite the microphone. This is very generous, but take some time to consider, Westbrook interrupted smoothly, sensing her hesitation. No need to decide tonight. Professor Chen can fill you in on all the details. He turned back to the audience with a broad smile. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give Ms. Lin a round of applause for her inspiring performance. The crowd obliged enthusiastically, and May used the moment to step back, away from the microphone, away from the center of attention. Howard followed her to the edge of the stage. Are you all right? He asked quietly. May nodded, though she felt anything but all right. Her mind was spinning, her heart racing. I need to go back to work, she said. Howard frowned. Surely they can manage without you for the rest of the evening. It's my job, May insisted. I can't just abandon my duties because someone important noticed me for a minute. Understanding crossed Howard's face. You think this is just a passing moment for them? That tomorrow they'll forget about you and the offer. May didn't answer, but her silence was confirmation enough. This isn't charity or a momentary impulse, Howard said. Westbrook has been looking for someone to fill this position for months. He just didn't expect to find that person serving drinks at his gala. May looked out at the crowd, now returning to their conversations, their drinks, their evening of philanthropy and self-congratulation. And what happens when they realize I haven't played seriously in 10 years? That I work as hotel staff because I couldn't make it as a musician? You couldn't make it? Howard raised an eyebrow. May, you never tried to make it. You were accepted to the conservatory on a full scholarship. You chose to step away for your grandmother. And I would make that choice again, May said firmly. She gave me everything. Her home, her love, her music. When she needed me, there was no choice to make. Howard nodded. I know, Li Wei was my oldest friend. I understood then, and I understand now. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. But she's been gone for 8 years, May. What has kept you from music since then? The question hit May like a physical blow. What had kept her away? Fear, grief, the comfort of invisibility? Or perhaps the feeling that returning to music without her grandmother would only highlight her absence? Before she could form an answer, Rita appeared at the bottom of the stage steps. Sorry to interrupt, she said, but there's a bit of a situation with the dessert service. We need more hands. I'll come right away, May said, grateful for the escape. She gave Howard an apologetic look. We can talk later. Of course. He pulled a business card from his pocket. My direct number is on here. Call me tomorrow, or stop by the conservatory anytime. May took the card and slipped it into her uniform pocket, then hurried after Rita. For the next hour, she lost herself in work, refilling coffee cups, clearing plates, bringing out more desserts from the kitchen. The physical tasks were a relief after the emotional tumult of the evening, but she couldn't completely escape. Guests who had ignored her before now smiled and nodded as she passed. A few tried to engage her in conversation about her music, her background, her fascinating story. May answered politely but briefly. Moving on as quickly as possible, near the dessert table, she overheard a conversation between two women in designer dresses. It's just like in those movies, one was saying, the hidden talent discovered in an unlikely place. I thought things like that only happened in stories, her friend replied. But did you see Westbrook's face? He knows talent when he sees it. That's how he built his fortune. From hotel maid to artist in residence. It's like a fairy tale. May kept her head down as she collected their empty plates, pretending not to hear. Is that what they thought? That she was living some rags-to-riches fantasy? That her life was a neat storyline for their entertainment? They didn't understand. They couldn't know what it had cost her to play tonight, to open those carefully locked doors inside herself, to hear her grandmother's favorite melody come alive under her fingers again. As the evening wound down, guests began to leave. The crowd thinned, the noise level dropped. Hotel staff started the discreet process of cleaning up while the last guest lingered over final drinks. May was gathering abandoned napkins when Devon approached her. He looked different now, the smug amusement gone from his face, replaced by something that might have been embarrassment. I owe you an apology, he said without preamble. What we did earlier, asking you to play as a joke, it was cruel. May continued collecting napkins. It's fine. No, it's not, he insisted. We treated you like entertainment, not a person. I'm sorry. She looked up at him then, surprised by his sincerity. Thank you for saying that. Devin shuffled his feet, clearly uncomfortable. My mom was a piano teacher, you know, before she married my dad and joined the country club set. He gave a small, self-deprecating smile. She would have smacked me upside the head for what I did tonight. You didn't know, May said. That's no excuse. But watching you play? He shook his head in wonder. You made that broken piano sound like it was worth $1 million. Made me remember how much I used to love listening to my mom play. May didn't know what to say to that. Anyway, Devin continued, I hope you take the position. You've got a gift. It would be a shame to waste it. He gave her a small, awkward nod and walked away. May watched him go, a strange feeling settling over her. All evening she had been thinking of the offer as something unreal, a momentary impulse that would be forgotten by morning. But what if it wasn't? What if this really was a chance to reclaim the path she had left behind? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. By midnight, the ballroom was nearly empty. The cleaning crew had begun breaking down tables and sweeping the floors. Rita approached May with a tired smile. You can head home, she said. You've had quite a night. I can stay and help, May offered. Rita shook her head. Go, rest, and May, whatever you decide about Westbrook's offer, I hope you know we'd miss you here. She squeezed May's arm before walking away to oversee the cleanup. May made her way to the staff room to collect her things. The hotel was quiet now, most of the guests gone, the event over. As she passed through the lobby, she noticed the grand piano there, a beautiful instrument perfectly maintained, unlike the broken one in the ballroom. She had passed it every day for 5 years without ever touching it. On impulse, she stepped closer and lifted the fallboard. The polished keys gleamed in the soft lobby lighting. May glanced around. The front desk clerk was busy with a late check-in and no one else was around. Carefully, she sat down on the bench. The first notes she played were tentative, questioning. But the piano responded beautifully, its tone rich and resonant. May closed her eyes and let herself play freely for the first time in years. No broken keys to work around, no audience to impress. Just her and the music. She didn't notice when the front desk clerk finished with the guest and turned to listen. She didn't see Howard Chen emerge from the elevator, pausing in surprise when he heard the music. She didn't notice Thomas Westbrook, returning to collect a forgotten briefcase, stop in the doorway of the lobby. May was lost in the music, reconnecting with a part of herself that had been dormant for too long. The melody she played was one of her own creation, something new, not tied to memories of her grandmother or her past life. It spoke of loss and finding, of hiding and being found. When she finally opened her eyes, May was startled to find a small group watching her, the front desk clerk, a few late-night hotel guests, Howard and Westbrook. They applauded softly when she finished. I thought you might still be here, Howard said, approaching the piano. I was hoping we could talk more. Before May could respond, Westbrook joined them. Ms. Lin, that was lovely. Different from what you played earlier, but equally moving. Thank you, May said, embarrassed to be caught playing. I was just leaving. Actually, Westbrook said, I was hoping to speak with you as well. About the position. May hesitated. Mr. Westbrook, I appreciate the offer, but I don't think... Before you decide, he interrupted gently. There's something you should know. This artist-in-residence program isn't just my idea. It was actually inspired by someone I knew long ago. His expression grew thoughtful. My mother was a pianist, not professionally, but she loved it. When she developed arthritis, she couldn't play anymore. It broke her heart. May thought of her grandmother's hands in her final years, still elegant but curled with pain, no longer able to dance across piano keys. Before she passed, Westbrook continued, she made me promise to support music education. She believed everyone deserved the chance to find the joy she had found in music. He smiled slightly. When I saw you play that broken piano tonight, bringing beauty out of something others had written off as worthless, I knew you were exactly the kind of teacher she would have wanted for this program. Howard nodded. The children we work with at the conservatory's outreach programs, many of them come from difficult circumstances. They need someone who understands that music isn't just about perfect technique or expensive instruments. It's about finding your voice even when the world seems determined not to hear it. May looked down at her hands resting on the piano keys, hands that had cleaned hotel rooms and served drinks for 5 years, hands that still somehow remembered how to make music. "I don't know if I can be what you're looking for," she said honestly. "It's been a long time since I thought of myself as a musician." "You don't have to decide right now," Westbrook said. "But I hope you'll at least visit the conservatory, see the work they're doing." Howard added, "Just come and play for the children. Then decide." As May looked between the two men, she realized that whatever happened next would be her choice. Not a joke at her expense, not a fairy tale transformation, but a decision she would make for herself. Whether to remain in the safe, invisible life she had built, or to step back into the world of music with all its joy and pain and possibility. The lobby clock chimed 1 in the morning. A new day, and perhaps, May thought as her fingers found a simple melody on the keys, the beginning of a new chapter. 1 week had passed since the night of the gala. May stood outside the City Conservatory of Music, her heart pounding as she looked up at the grand old building with its columns and wide stone steps. She had walked past this place many times over the years but never gone inside. It had been too painful, a reminder of the future she had given up. Now, with Howard Chen's business card clutched in her hand, she was about to cross that threshold. May had spent the past week in a state of uncertainty. She had returned to work the day after the gala, half expecting everything to return to normal, for the hotel guest to look past her again, for her brief moment in the spotlight to fade like a dream. But things had changed. Guests who recognized her from the event asked about her music. Her co-workers treated her differently, with a new kind of respect. Even Rita seemed to look at her with fresh eyes. "You don't have to keep working here, you know," Rita had said yesterday when she caught May staring at the lobby piano during her break. "Not if you have somewhere better to go." Did she have somewhere better to go? That was the question May had been wrestling with all week. The more she thought about Westbrook's offer, the more it terrified her. What if she couldn't do it? What if, after all these years away from music, she had nothing to offer as a teacher? What if she failed and lost this second chance too? But there was another fear, deeper and more personal. What if returning to music meant losing her connection to her grandmother? Those last few years of caring for her had been hard but precious. They had shared so much in that time, not just the burden of illness, but stories, memories, quiet moments of understanding. Would embracing music again somehow betray those years of sacrifice? May took a deep breath and climbed the steps to the conservatory entrance. The heavy doors swung open to reveal a lobby with high ceilings and marble floors that echoed with distant music. A violin somewhere. A piano in another room, voices raised in song. At the reception desk, a friendly woman with gray-streaked hair looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Professor Chen," May said. "My name is May Lin." The woman's eyes widened with recognition. "Oh, Professor Chen mentioned you might be coming." "He's with a class right now, but he asked me to bring you to him when you arrived. Please follow me." She led May through corridors lined with practice rooms. Through the windows, May glimpsed students of all ages bent over instruments, faces focused in concentration. The familiar sounds brought back memories of her own practice sessions long ago. The frustration, the breakthroughs, the moments when a difficult passage finally came together. They stopped outside a classroom where Howard Chen was working with a group of young children, perhaps 7 or 8 years old. They sat in a circle, simple percussion instruments in their hands, tambourines, wooden blocks, small drums. Howard was leading them in a rhythm exercise, his hands moving in gentle guidance. 1, 2, ready, play, he counted, and the children tapped out a simple beat together, their faces serious with concentration. When one little boy with thick glasses lost the rhythm, Howard didn't correct him but simply tapped the beat on the boy's shoulder until he found it again. "Excellent," Howard said when they finished. "Now remember how we talked about music telling a story? I want you to think about what story your rhythm is telling. Is it a happy story? A scary one? A quiet secret story?" A girl with braids and a missing front tooth raised her hand. "Mine is about a rabbit hopping through the forest." "Wonderful," Howard smiled.
"Can you play it for us the way a rabbit would hop?"
The girl tapped her wooden blocks in a light, quick pattern. The other children watched, entranced. "You see?" Howard said. "That's the magic of music. It can take us anywhere, show us anything if we know how to listen." He looked up then and noticed May standing in the doorway. His face lit up with a warm smile. "Ah, we have a visitor." Children, continue practicing your rhythm stories. I'll be right back. He joined May in the hallway, closing the classroom door partway behind him. You came, he said simply. May nodded. I said I would. Many people say things they don't mean. Howard's eyes were kind. I'm glad you're not one of them. I'm still not sure about the position, May said quickly. I just came to see what we do here. Howard finished for her. I understand. No pressure, just observation today. He gestured toward the classroom. These children are from the Pine Street neighborhood. Most of their schools have cut music programs completely. They come here twice a week for free lessons. May looked through the window at the children, now excitedly sharing their rhythm stories with each other. They seem happy. Music gives them something that belongs to them alone, Howard said. Many of them have very little they can call their own. But their music? That's theirs forever. He checked his watch. We have about 20 minutes left with this group. Would you like to join us? Before May could answer, the door swung open and the little boy with thick glasses peered out at them. Professor Chen, is that the piano lady? He asked, looking up at May with undisguised curiosity. Howard chuckled. Yes, Kevin, this is Ms. Lin, the piano lady I told you about. The one who played the broken piano and made it sound good? May felt her face warm. Howard told you about that? Kevin nodded solemnly. He said you could make beautiful music even when things aren't perfect. He pushed his glasses up his nose. I mess up a lot when I play. Can you show me how to make it sound good anyway? There was such honest hope in the boy's face that May found herself nodding before she could think better of it. I can try. Kevin's face split into a huge grin. He grabbed May's hand and pulled her into the classroom where the other children immediately surrounded her with excited questions. Are you really a piano master? Can you play the hardest song in the world? Do your fingers ever get tired? Howard clapped his hands for order. Children, Ms. Lin is going to join us for the rest of our class today. Let's show her what we've been working on, shall we? For the next 20 minutes, May sat in the circle with the children, joining in their rhythm games, listening to their musical stories. When Kevin struggled again with keeping time, she gently took his hands in hers and guided him through the pattern until he could feel it in his body. The look of pride on his face when he got it right made something warm bloom in May's chest. As the class ended and parents arrived to pick up their children, Kevin lingered. Will you be here next time? He asked May. May looked to Howard, who was carefully not listening, busy with gathering up instruments. I'm not sure yet. Kevin's face fell slightly, but he nodded with the serious acceptance that some children develop early. Okay, but I hope you come back. You explain things different than Professor Chen. I understand better. After the children had gone, Howard led May to his office, a small room cluttered with books, sheet music, and framed photographs. One photo on his desk caught May's eye. A much younger Howard standing beside her grandmother after a concert, both of them smiling broadly. She was so proud that day, Howard said, following May's gaze. It was her last public performance before she left China. May touched the frame gently. I remember her telling me about it. She said she played better that night than ever before because she was playing for freedom. She was remarkable. Howard sat behind his desk and gestured for May to take the chair opposite, much like her granddaughter. May looked away from the compliment. Those children today, they remind me of myself at that age, so eager, so full of possibilities. They need teachers who understand them, Howard said, who see their potential, not just their circumstances. He leaned forward. May, you don't have to decide about the artist in residence position today, but I would like to offer you something else in the meantime. What's that? Teach one class, just one, twice a week for a month. See how it feels to be on this side of the music again. He smiled. Kevin already responds to you. The others would too. May hesitated. One class seemed manageable, a way to test the waters without diving in completely. What would I teach? Piano fundamentals. Many of these children have never touched a piano before. You would be their first guide into that world. Their first guide. May thought of her grandmother's gentle hands over hers, showing her where each finger belonged on the keys. The patience, the joy of those first discoveries. Could she offer that to someone else? I would need to arrange time off from the hotel, she said slowly. Howard's face brightened. So you'll do it? One class, May clarified. For 1 month? Then I'll decide about the full position. Excellent. Howard stood and extended his hand. Welcome back to the conservatory, Mei Lin, even if it's just for a little while. As they shook hands, Mei felt a strange mixture of terror and excitement. She was stepping back into a world she had left behind, opening doors she had kept firmly closed for years. Howard led her from his office to a small practice room with an upright piano, not unlike the one from her childhood apartment. Would you like a few minutes alone before I show you the rest of the facility? Mei nodded gratefully. After Howard left, she sat at the piano bench and placed her hands on the keys without pressing them. The familiar position felt both strange and right, like returning to a childhood home, both foreign and deeply known. She began to play softly, not her grandmother's music this time, nor the classical pieces from her training, but something new, something that spoke of the journey that had brought her here. The notes flowed from a place inside her that had been silent too long. As she played, Mei realized something important. Her grandmother had never wanted her to give up music permanently. The sacrifice had been necessary for a time, but it was never meant to be forever. What would truly honor her grandmother's memory was to share the gift she had been given, to pass it on to children like Kevin, who needed someone to guide them past their mistakes and help them find the music within themselves. The position at the conservatory wasn't a betrayal of the years spent caring for her grandmother. It was a continuation of her legacy, a way to ensure that the music they had shared would live on in new hands, new hearts. When Mei finally stopped playing, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. She didn't have all the answers yet. The path ahead wasn't entirely clear, but she had found her way back to music, and music had found its way back to her. And it had started with a joke, with wealthy strangers asking a hotel worker to play a broken piano for their amusement. They had expected her to fail, to provide a moment of awkward entertainment at her expense. Instead, she had shown them and herself that beauty can emerge from broken things, that music lives in the heart long after the final note has faded. Mei closed the piano gently and stood. Howard would be waiting to show her around, to introduce her to her future students, to welcome her home. It was time to play again.